everybody. Thank you for joining us here today at our Wellness Wednesday at TBH. Today we have an exciting topic, I would say, the discussion about social media, its effect on mental health, as well as keeping your home internet safe. So today with us, we have Hera Wacholder, who is a mental health counselor, and we have Chris Morales, who's the CEO of IT Care. Welcome. So let's just get started. So Hera, how would you say social media is tied to mental health?
I'd say that, with everything that kids are utilizing these days, anything that we are spending a lot of time on is going to affect us one way or the other. What we're putting into it will either impact us in the long run for a positive sense or a negative sense. I would say with social media, there are a lot of benefits, but I think there are also a lot of negatives to social media, especially for kids and teens that aren't being monitored. If they're, on social media with different platforms, 6, 7, 8 hours a day, it's so bad for us physically, mentally, emotionally. It just causes a lot of different things. I could speak the whole hour on how this affects our mental health. So I'd like to break it down further as we get further along into the topic. But I will say, we tend to be a little, we put a little too much out there on social media, and especially for kids and teens, something that they may not even mean to do, or they may not realize how it could impact them long term. It could create a domino effect. What I would highly recommend is that before even allowing kids and teens to get access, whether it's to the computer, to their phone, to their iPad, whatever type of technology they're utilizing, I would first teach them specific skills and rules for using social media, even before they have access to these pieces of equipment. So before they're given their phone, before they're given all these things, there needs to be a set agreement as to what's going to be utilized, and they need to understand that it will be monitored. And I'm sure Chris could explain, some of the ways that you can monitor safely without taking over too much with privacy. But at the end of the day, safety comes first, and kids and teens need to learn how to take better care of themselves emotionally, mentally, and this is a great way to start that, is learning how to monitor and do things in a more responsible, healthy way.
Mm-hmm. And you mentioned something, in talking, you mentioned about time, and obviously now with everything being in our stay at home, we're spending more time online, and we're asked all the time, by parents, how much time is too much? How much time should we allow them to be online? And every family is different, right?
Right.
What works for one might not work for another. But is there any state guidelines to say, maybe this amount of hours or time, or if there's a certain time and then a break that parents should be kind of helping guide their kids through?
I would say don't wait for chaos to ensue. If you're already seeing some telltale signs that your kid is struggling with managing their use of social media and technology, for instance, you see your kid going to bed much later, or, speed eating so they can get right back into a game, or, things like that, then hey, that's too much of social media, and we need to set a limit. I would say it's based off of household. I wouldn't say it's based off of a certain age. I would say mentality plays a role for sure. Mm-hmm. And that's where professional counseling comes in too, is that sometimes it helps when someone outside of the family is looking inward and seeing, okay, what are some ways that we can create some sort of behavioral contract or a plan for everyone in the household to follow. A lot of the kids and teens that come see us here at the Bougainvillea House, they tend to get upset about the fact that, okay, I have to monitor my use, but no one else in the family has to monitor theirs. How is that fair? And, we have to practice what we preach. If we're telling kids, hey, put your phone away at the dinner table, we can't have our phones out as well. Mm-hmm. So, going over those rules would be really helpful. And, with responsibility and with growth, then we could say, okay, let's say they started off with 1 to 2 hours a day. I'm just giving an example. I'm sure kids and teens would freak out if it was
only 1 or 2 hours.
It was only 1 or 2 hours. Sorry, I'm not saying that. But if they handle that amount well, then we say, okay, let's see what you do with this, and it's stepping stones. I think the issue is sometimes we do one extreme or the other. It's we take everything away, or we give them everything at once, and it becomes too overwhelming. So I definitely recommend, have that conversation, if you're co-parenting, whoever's in the household, the parents, family, having that conversation first as to what you feel is appropriate, and sitting your kids down and say, hey, like, this is what we've talked about and this is where we're going to go with it. The key word is consistency. We have to follow through. If we're setting rules one day and then the next day they're allowed to be on it for 12 hours, I mean, it's going to be really hard on you for being able to make that happen and making that a rule, as well as it's just going to be really difficult for kids to learn how to self-regulate.
Right.
The goal is that eventually a child or a teen will be able to do that for themselves. But some kids and teens have difficulty with it. I have a few clients that they choose to turn in their phone to their parents because they can't trust themselves with it at night, and they know they're going to be scrolling through, Instagram all night or TikTok. So it's really important to have several conversations on this too, and keeping them involved in the process.
Right. So in addition to having like these family guidelines or plans, I don't want to call them rules, but just the way they handle that, is there a way so that the parents aren't feeling or looking like a police, that they can safely monitor their interaction, like an application or something that the parents can have installed in all the phones or tablets, that they can kind of at least exclude apps that you don't want your children to download?
Of course, and completely agree with you. The time invested, according to statistics right now on mobile applications, is TikTok is 8 hours a day. So when we have a child that is actually 8 hours on TikTok, or an adult, because actually this is between ages between 10 and 25.
Wow.
We have an individual that is exposed to material or technology for a prolonged amount of time. 8 hours is straight, is 8 hours.
That's a full-time job.
That's a full-time job, correct. And people don't consider that some of these applications, they actually designed to imprint behaviors on children and adults. In fact, corporations actually block the usage of some of these applications within their offices, and we should do it at home as well. Google has a very good application. It's free for parents, called Parent Link, and will allow you to install it on mobile devices, Android in this case. And what it does is it actually limits the child to 3 hours or so a day of cell phone usage. And after that time has been consumed, it blocks the cell phone. Now, it doesn't block the cell phone not to receive phone calls. What it does is it actually limits the amount of internet used for that mobile device at that moment, just to be able to imprint behavior and limit dependency on the technology. This is something that a parent can actually control on his own mobile device, and it works on pretty much all types of technology. I have seen the same technology on Apple, though Apple is a little more invasive. It actually collects information before you block something. But Parent Link from Google is simple to use. You implement is already embedded within mobile devices. It allows the parent to see what application is being installed, how many hours the child is actually accessing that application. It allows the parent to authorize the install of that application as well. We have seen that being utilized with children that are addicted to mobile technology, and through the usage of it, 1 month, 2 months, we see that they decrease the activity.
Changing habits.
Definitely.
Right.
So that's a good recommendation.
Okay, and we talked about time online, on our devices. Now, is there maybe not so much saying that the amount of time is unhealthy, but also what they're looking at, because we know that there are some good healthy apps, or I mean, I'm a fan of TikTok. I am. I know it's bad. I know it's bad. But they have some funny things. But then, and they do, basically suck you in, and you stay on a lot longer than you would think, even if you aren't necessarily addicted. But is there also a safe way of saying that, you know, even with some good apps might not be so bad if they're on 8 hours. I mean, 8 hours is a long time, but
I would still say that time is an issue as well. Like I said, it's not just the emotional and mental, but we're looking at the physical issues as well. I mean, I don't know about you, but when I'm just working on a laptop at work, you know, you start to feel that eye strain,
Right.
you get fatigue, you know, and again, kids and teens, especially that are growing up in this generation, it's a lot more of virtual activity rather than actual physical activity. So that's another issue, is you're spending several hours cooped up inside and you're not engaging in a lot of other activities you could be doing.
right.
You know, even with what's going on with quarantine, there's so many things that you can do. Even if you bought a jump rope in your house and you're doing jump rope in the house, or you're you know, playing kickball with your family outside in the backyard, you know, a lot of these kids are so addicted that they just stay in their room and it's like they're zoning out. They're not able to focus. I also believe it affects communication too, because if you are, you know, almost zombified, when you have to have a face-to-face conversation, a lot of kids and teens struggle. You know, we talk a lot about prepping kids and teens for the future, getting them ready for college, jobs, things like that. And, you know, it's hard enough for them to even think about the basics, you know, life skills and, you know, asking them, what would you say in a job interview? You can't just send an emoji when you're face to face, or, you know, there are things that we can't really cut corners on. So there are great apps out there. I recommend quite a few. There's the Calming app, there's Mandala apps, and they're wonderful. But with everything, it needs to be in moderation. You know, anything, even the best habits for us, if we overuse or misuse certain things, it can become, you know, risky for us as well. So it's finding that healthy balance and that middle ground. And, you know, no human can balance things perfectly every single day, or even, you know, I can't think of a single day I've balanced things perfectly anyways, but the goal is to attempt to do things a little bit better with every day that we learn new things. And that's the issue, is if they're not learning and they keep doing the same thing over and over again, it's only going to get worse with time and with age. You know, so we're expecting kids and teens to have really great structure and follow through, but if they can't literally put away their phone, you know, what are they going to do when they're in college? What are they going to do when they're in grad school? What are they going to do at work? You know, these are things that we have to start looking at right now as healthy building blocks to pave the way for a better future for them.
And this is definitely easier to start from the beginning,
Right,
To
right,
teach from the
100%.
beginning when they first get their, you know, their phone.
And even before that, like I said,
right.
it's having the conversation long before you put that in their hands. Because once you're given that device, it's game over. Like, you know, think about all the kids that are playing video games all night. I mean, there has to be certain rules that are set and followed.
And it's not to say you can't teach an old dog new tricks.
Right.
It's just
harder. It's more difficult.
Yes.
Right.
So what would you say is the most active, or probably the most sought out platform right now in social media with kids?
Well, I'd say TikTok in quarantine has been, I mean, there are people that are using TikTok right now as PE and recess for their kids. I'd say TikTok is a big one. YouTube will always be big. I don't know how many times I've tried to watch one video and you somehow end up watching 8,000 different videos in a given day. I'd still say Instagram is pretty popular, and Snapchat. They might be utilized differently, but a lot of social media is picking up on trends of challenges. So we have a lot of these challenges. A lot of them are risky, impulsive, but they keep their attention. And it's interesting when you think about it. Okay, so kids can sit still, right, to watch TikTok for several hours, but the second we put them into a classroom, it's like in 5 minutes they're already, they can't do it. So imagine if we harness that ability and apply it to education, to daily living. I mean, it would be pretty powerful.
And we have to understand that it's not only that the kids are so, that it's something that's so negative with the kids.
Right.
In the US and Britain, we spend $52 billion a year in marketing. That's internet marketing. So that is only digital marketing. And there are researches that are ongoing, and they basically figure out how the mind works, that it will automatically bring you to the next app and the next thing to look at, and that's how they keep you on. So we know there's billions, did I say million? It was 52 billion, okay, 52
Just
billion.
to be clear.
Just to be
52
clear,
billion.
that's how many zeros. So there's a lot of money invested in all of this. And, we're basically targeted through social media. It's one of the biggest things, is right there. But it's interesting that we forget one of the bigger issues is that they also target you through voice activated assistants, right? There you have Siri, there you have Alexa. So, and this is how they figure out what your interests are without even having to search it online. So we can be having a conversation here and say something, and now that's going to come up on our phone the next time we're on Facebook.
That's
So creepy.
Google Assistant is the new one.
Yes.
So now we have Google Assistant, Alexa, and all those in Siri, of course. And what we notice is because of that investment, they need to get their return back. And what we're seeing right now on platforms that they were used to be children-oriented is that now we see material that is not children-oriented.
Right.
Like for example, in the last 36 months, TikTok has jumped from being popular for children to be very popular between 35 and 45-year-old. And now we see soft pornography in TikTok on channels where we're only being utilized for children. On Instagram, 25% of the material is actually considered soft porn. So those subjects and that material is being filtered into these platforms because they are revenue-generated applications. And when we think about what is actually safe for children, nothing is safe for children.
Right.
Because as long as there's an invested interest to get a return from that investment, you have to open it to marketing and channels. And there are big companies out there actually investing into getting that return. So I saw something in Disney Plus recently that actually blew my mind because they were also putting movies in there that belong to, because they just purchased, that they are actually channeled for adults, accessible to children. So as this technology progresses and nobody's looking into what is actually appropriate for what age and what individual,
Right.
everything is on the table. I was reading an article from Forbes magazine recently, and they were discussing that a child between 10 and 17 simulates 20,000 deaths a day through video game experience. We haven't, but they do, because they're on video games that are actually being promoted. And it's a video game that they can reach out in their own rooms,
Right.
in the living area. So when we're looking into technology and applications, what is safe, nothing is safe if you don't have enough information to be able to make judgment call of what can my child be exposed to, or how I'm going to invest my time into a specific application, what I'm going to be exposed to. There are no filters. I hear a lot on the internet and commentators about filtering this material and filtering that material, but the reality is that if you search it, you find it.
Right.
There's no filter.
Right.
Right.
There's no filter. That's why you have to utilize technology to be able to filter material that comes into your home, into your mobile devices, even before. Even if you think it's not going to happen because your kid is not going to look for it,
Right.
or maybe you don't want to be exposed for it, guess what? It's going to come because you're going
It's
to
going
search
to come
for
at
it.
one point.
And it's even on accident. We're talking about the advertisements. How many times something just pops up and you're like, I had no, like, where did this come from?
Right.
It's nothing against children, teens, families. It's more about how the system as a whole. And if we're not, new things pop up every single day. So you might be well aware of what's going on and how the system works, and all of a sudden it gets shaken up again, and then new things trickle in every single day. I keep hearing about new apps every week that I didn't even think would be a real thing. I thought it was a joke. Which the one that I wanted to bring up that's really concerning is the Omegle app, which there are so many like it, but literally the tagline is talk to a stranger.
Right.
And for children 13, and they say it goes from ages 13 to 19, which is very easy to change your birth date. You can get adults on there very easily. It's literally like roulette, and they swipe and they're talking to a complete stranger, and maybe there are people with good intentions on there, and there are people that do not have the best intentions on there. We've had situations where teens accidentally gave their location, their address, they're giving out information that they didn't realize would be a big deal. I thought this was my friend. You know, when we go into schools and we ask kids and teens, how many of you have, you know, over 100 friends on social media? How many of you have over 1,000? And a majority of them have over 1,000. And then we ask, how many of you know those people in person? Everyone's hands goes down. These are people they have never met. These are, and some of them might be their age, but they've never met them before.
Mm-hmm.
They have no idea where they're located or what their intentions are. So again, it's being mindful about the entire system as a whole and all the things we don't have control over. That's why I think it's so important to recognize the areas we can control and making sure that we have really solid systems at home set in place to protect those aspects, you know, because there are so many things, you know, that you can't protect or that you can't control.
No, you just have to be educated. You
Right.
have to do your research, because you can have the you know, best well-mannered child, and it doesn't mean that they're not good. It's
Right.
just there are predators out there that are targeting them. And it could be in the one moment where they're sad because they didn't get to eat a cookie, and they're online and they're talking about how they're sad, and these predators are looking for that.
100%.
And then how simple is it for them to ask the right questions and get the child to engage?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we see that every day, but it does happen. And that's the thing that we need to be careful of and just really be informed and know it. Again, it's not a matter of policing your kids, right? It's a matter of just knowing what they're doing, where they are, and making sure that you're taking care of them, even if you're not there.
And it's also being involved in knowing what's going on too. You know, that there are kids that are downloading certain apps, and it would just be really helpful and good to know, like, okay, what is it my kid is doing for 4, 5, 6 hours a day on all these different platforms. And, you know, there are kids and teens that have several different accounts on Instagram and all these different places, and they're putting a lot of time and effort into this, and it's really important that we see what's going on, and that they're also putting time into other parts of their life too.
Right. And we know with social media, as you've seen with, you know, with clients, that it obviously puts a lot more pressure, which builds up on the anxiety and depression and all of that. And we talk about overuse, and especially now with the pandemic, but could the overuse of social media also be covering some other underlying issues because of them? It's almost like they're socializing on social media, right? But they might not really be.
Yeah, I mean, when you think about it too, you know, social media is another way of avoidance and escape. So there might be something going on at home, or something going on at school, or something going on in general that they're just wanting to avoid and not deal with. Also, there are things that happen on social media that trigger our self-worth and feelings of depression and anxiety. For instance, we have this whole FOMO movement, right? The fear of missing out. So you see all your friends posting about the trip that they're going on and how you aren't going, or how your whole group of friends somehow went to the beach without telling you, and you're seeing all of this online. We're seeing a lot of different adult habits being glorified as well by celebrities, by local people in the area. So this all weighs on us quite a bit. You know, we talk a lot about self-image, especially with teens, and, you know, they're thinking they have to look picture perfect, and they're not realizing how many of those photos are photoshopped, airbrushed. I mean, where those people don't even look like that either. So we're trying to strive for this perfection that doesn't exist. And that's a lot of pressure on anyone of any age. And if you're literally scrolling through for several hours thinking these negative things about yourself, imagine the damage that does. You know, not only in the short term, but in the long run of, you know, it leads us to tend to pick some not so great people to call our friends, to call like that core peer group, which is concerning, and we keep developing these negative habits. So I'd say, you know, if you don't have any type of mental health or behavioral health concerns prior to social media, I can almost guarantee you that you will, if that makes sense. So you could put the most healthy child on a social media platform and you can utterly destroy them. You know, there's cyberbullying and a lot of it is going unreported. And again, our whole purpose of this webinar isn't to scare anyone or just have you, you know, disconnect from all internet from your home, because that's impossible. We can't live in a bubble. I think we've
It's not going
made
away.
that clear, and it's not going away.
It's not going
It's not to scare, it's to educate and inform and to make healthier choices. And there's a lot of information out there. And, you know, as they say, a picture is worth 1,000 words, but we have to make sure those 1,000 words are credible and from credible, valid sources. You know, it's the same thing where people were thinking that all they needed was toilet paper and they'd be set for coronavirus. Like, that doesn't make sense. So it's just, education is super important, and prevention is key. Being proactive, not waiting for your kid to be out of 10, not waiting for there to be a situation where you're going to have to, you know, bail them out of it. Let's address it now when it's not an issue. When you feel like your kid could never get involved in that, great. Let's just make sure we have some rules in place to make sure it never happens. And there's no perfect system, we know that. So there are going to be times where people are going to mess up, things are going to get screwed up, and we have to learn how to make the best of those situations and learn from them and just create a healthier system as we go.
Especially now, you know, with our situation that we're in, you know, we want to encourage the kids to have some social interaction with their friends, whether it's FaceTime or a Zoom chat, so that they can not only, you know, just see it on streaming, but you're also actually interacting with a face, right? Putting a voice in a face. But having said that, you know, what concerns would you say that we should have at home with our home internet?
So what we have noticed in there's a couple of months is that now dad and mom or family members are coming to work at home.
Right.
And they're bringing their computers and they're bringing their material and their equipment, and he plugs in. And now they see the adult sitting on front of the computer 8 hours a day. So they assimilate the same behavior. And now what we see is lack of security at home. We see that now we don't have the proper passwords. Now children can access unlimited material, because what it used to be before is no longer there, because now that the mom or the individual needs access to the internet unrestricted.
Right.
So now we have the issue with other devices at home, like for example, and following your line, where we need to learn to live with this technology because it's not going away.
Right.
There are devices labeled LLTs, and LLT could be a laptop that is not a computer, but it might just be a device with a screen or a bell at the door. It could be your television. We have seen some modems that come from the carrier that have cameras built in. All these devices, unrestricted, can actually connect to the internet without you knowing. And very able individuals from the outside can actually engage with those technologies. They can engage with your television. They can engage with your mobile device. They can connect to your modem and see what's going on, what traffic goes on. It's always a good recommendation to have the password of your modem replaced. When you get it from the vendor or from the service provider, to replace that password. Make sure that you isolate or separate what devices can connect to the internet and what devices you don't want to connect to the internet. Like for example, when we get guests, we receive guests at home, and we're friends and they want to borrow your internet and you give them the password. Oh, guess what? Your modem is not limited to your living room or your house. It broadcasts your Wi-Fi over you, below you, and sideways. So if that friend happens to cross by in front of your house, guess what? It can't plug into your house. Right. And because there's no restriction inside, they can see what devices are connected at home, who is actually watching what. And these technologies are really available out there for people to use. So change the password of your modem, secure your computers, make sure that you have devices that don't connect to your network, they don't need to be on the internet, and be very aware that technology is here to stay. So we need to educate ourselves to use it properly. And it is a friend, it could be also be an enemy. So to keep that aware.
Right. And always we usually put on connect, always recognize this network anyway, right? So it automatically connects.
That's correct. So what we do, what we recommend is when you set up a Wi-Fi, and you can do this by just going inside the modem of your vendor. It comes with a name. This is Alicia's house or Veronica's house. Well, don't use the name of your family. Don't use your home address. Some of these devices can send the signal up to 300 feet. Anybody driving in front of your house can actually pick up and look, this is the house for the Menendez, the Johns. This is Veronica's house. Well, this is the address where this device is located. And if they find that the house is very appealing, then guess what? We're going to sit here and actually sit in front of that modem. And individuals doing this don't actually sit in front of your house. They have a small little antenna that they can put on your backyard and just look into the traffic of your home. So the best thing is to separate your network, set up a really good password, hide the Wi-Fi signal of your modem. You put invisible. There's little tab says, do you want this visible or invisible? Invisible. Remember the name of it. So when you add a device like a mobile phone or a computer, and he asks you what is the network, you go, it is this. Nobody knows it. It helps for the signal to be hidden when you're configuring your modem device. Simple things to do. You need to go inside the modem and get it done. We also put together a website that we can show people how to go through the process if they want to do it at home.
And is there, what would you say are the main concerns when you have kids in your home, with internet, just in general? Because
right now, internet is unrestricted. There's some laws that protect children. There's some laws that protect adults based on traffic, and there are laws of material. So what's happening is that now you can search for something and you will see everything. I have a 12-year-old boy at home, and he was researching for a document he needed to put together for school a couple of weeks ago. Went to Google, magic keys, and the world opened up. And it was scary. The top searches were not what he was looking for. So the dangers of having a child in front of the computer without some kind of filtering or restrictions is that the world is open. There's no limitation on what they can find. Some of these websites or material does not require for you to identify yourself, right, that you're an adult, you're a child, even for adults. I had a friend of mine a couple of months ago. He called me and goes, Chris, we're gonna do this seminar, turn his computer on, try to find a website, put the wrong name, and 100 people just saw what they were not supposed to see. We need to be more careful about what material we want our systems to access. And you can limit by filtering this type of material. There are a couple of companies, we use Safe Web is a website we use. And what they do is they allow you to put a specific directions onto your computer. So when you search for something, it can filter adult material, aggressive material, violence. It can secure for viruses, and all this for free. So you configure your computer or your modem to go through these DNS systems that will filter that information. We also put that up there so people can actually see how that is done.
You said that's all free?
That's all free.
Yeah, we actually, Chris and his company has actually put together a website that we will share with everyone that you can go to, and it lists his recommendations as far as what applications you could download for viruses or for these protections that you could, that are all available at no cost. So, we thank you for that. Now, what are some of, I'd say some of these issues. So if you have these applications that you can somewhat filter, some of these kids are pretty savvy.
Yes.
Okay, and probably a lot smarter than we are. So what happens when, we were talking about when the lights go out, but when you go home, where you're now you're asleep, you're gone to bed, and your kids might still be up with their internet access.
What we recommend is do a couple of things. There are things happening at your home when you sleep that you don't know.
Right.
We can forget about the children accessing cell phones. What we have discovered through analysis of data is that cell phones right now operate at night at 100%. So while you're sleeping, your phone is doing, imagine, uploading pictures, changing pictures, checking your contacts, uploading contacts. There's a lot of traffic at night through mobile devices and computers and technology. Your modem is also very active. It's scanning your network to see what can find, what devices are available in your home. Turn off your modem at night. Your Wi-Fi router doesn't need to be on at night unless you're downloading something that you need to have in the morning. The best thing is to connect your modem to a power strip, and when you go home at night, or you go to bed at night, turn it off. When you're not using your mobile device because you're at home, set up your mobile device to airplane mode. What we discover is a lot of these applications, it waits for you to be idle to start taking information from your mobile devices. As long as your mobile device is not just sitting there for an hour, then the limit of information leaving your mobile device is restricted. So the best thing is at night, you turn off your mobile device, you put it on airplane mode. Just keep in mind that when you put your mobile device on airplane mode, you lose radio signal, so some phone calls may not come in. But if you're at home, you're at home. And if you don't need to have that mobile device active, the best thing is to have it disabled. There are no restrictions on mobile devices anymore. There are some components that you can change and adjust to allow privacy, but the reality is that there are no simple ways to turn them off or turn them on, whichever the case may be. So what's happening is that now the phone is acting up without your consent. The best thing is to turn that off and have everybody at home to put that device on airplane mode and turn off your modem at night. However, through Parent Link, for example, from Google, which I have found that is the easiest and it has no cost to users. To control, you can actually put a schedule for nighttime. At my house, that nighttime starts at 8 for my younger son, which is 12, and at 9 p.m. for my oldest son, and he's 17. People go, he's 17 years old. Yes, but he still sees a lot of material that I would rather not him having exposed. He needs to rest as well. So that schedule kicks in around those hours, and what it does is it turns off the phone system for them at night. And it allows me to also, if they go out, to track their mobile devices and see where they are. Not to condition them to be spied upon, but to allow me to make sure that I know what's happening with that technology on their behalf until they learn that that technology could be a friend or foe.
Right. Well, I mean, it's our jobs to keep our kids safe,
Definitely.
right? And you don't have to be a police about it. But if you know they're on, even if they call you and tell you they're on their way home, you have an idea of how long it would take because they could have gone into an accident. They could have, it doesn't have to be that they're doing something inappropriate or something's going on, but it could be something as simple as that. Just to, again, have an idea of what's going on and keeping your kids safe. So we never want to be the police.
A study from Cybernetic Security magazine recently showed that 60% of children under the age of 17, or minors under the age of 17, their best friend is an online friend. It's not an individual that you have actually met in person. It's not an individual that you can actually see. It is my game buddy. It is my chit chat buddy. It is my chat buddy, my Instagram buddy, my secret buddy. So what's happening right now is that us being parents or family members who care for others, we would like to meet your friends, but these friends are not what we think they are. Some of that study indicated that 42% of those number one friends, we call them my number one friend, my best friend, is online friend and is also an adult over the age of 25.
Oh, wow.
And for females, it's even greater. We see females between the ages of 12 and 17 where their best male friend or friend is an online friend that is over 35 years old. So we see this exposure of children with adults through research that it boggles your mind. We also see on studies recently by University of Maryland that increase of child interest into pornography starts from 7 years old to 17 years old, have increased in the last couple of years last year, on females 60%, on males 40% addiction. And all this is through the behavior of applications, and
Right.
that they're designed for adults, but because open internet is for everybody, children can actually get access to these applications.
Right, and here's some statistics on that. So we know there's the Internet Crimes Against Children Task Force, right? So their goal is to help state and local law enforcement. So in 2003, they spent $12.4 million in training and technology. In 2019, they spent $36,300,000. That's a 300% increase in what, 13 years?
Correct.
That's an insane amount of money that they have to put in this technology because number one, everybody's very savvy, but I mean, it's a part of our life. The internet, social media, everything. I mean, we do everything online. I buy groceries online. So we do everything there. And again, it's not going to go away. And we want it to, it makes things so much easier in many ways, but just with anything, there's good and bad. Right. So we know there's a lot going on, and it's just a matter. And one of the reasons why, we invited Chris to be here is because, there is an issue. And even though it might not be in your household, it's there. And just be careful and be aware. And there are many applications out there that are safe ones, because there are a lot of applications that you think are safe and you upload them and you think it's an antivirus or something, and it's not at all.
That's right.
And they can monitor absolutely everything. They can take over your camera, and everything is a smart application, right? Your TVs are smart.
That's
Everything's smart now.
That's correct.
Yeah.
So this is the difference between a computer, because now we call everything a computer. Oh, that's a PC. It's no longer a PC. Now we're into the new world, which everything's LOT, and LOT pretty much means is that it has a computer capability intelligence, and things that you wouldn't think that it does. And it's actually an LLT. Recently, MIT was able to, through a research, hack into a coffee maker at home and turn a component inside to listen to conversations at home, because it had a component that plugged in into Alexa. So very savvy people can actually go into any of these technologies and turn it onto something else. So now you have a dishwasher that you tell them turn on, and guess what? Now it's listening to you and it's broadcasting your information.
Well, if it's online, even as I'd like to say I'm a little tech savvy, or at least not scared of it. But if you can actually put your slow cooker on through your phone while you're at work,
right?
Anybody can have access to that.
Right. Same with your house alarm.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. So these smart homes, they seem like, it's almost like, oh, I wish I had one. Do this, do that, the other. But when with all of that technology, which makes our life easier or maybe cooler, you're giving access to everybody. And unless you're extremely IT savvy, where you can completely block everybody out, but then again, there's always another IT person.
That's correct.
Every time a new application comes out, then you have another person that can hack it.
That's right.
So it's just trying to keep up.
Yeah, one of the issues we see the last couple of weeks as well is people are putting cameras on the outside, and guess what? Nobody changes their password. It's the default password that is publicly printed on websites and on health forums. And so what happens is that now you can actually tap onto anybody's wireless camera at their doors, inside their living rooms, and there's a growing movement of watching people. It's called, people watching people. And all they do is sit at their house and start watching somebody else's living room because it's better than TV. So we see a lot of that growing right now.
Like a reality show.
It's a reality
show.
I'm not a fan of reality
shows. That they did not sign up for.
That's correct. So involuntarily, you're now turning to their favorite channel. And these things we see on the ground growing tremendously, exponentially, with nobody tapping onto it. And of course, you go to Amazon and you purchase one of these cameras, and they're very economical. $45, you get a ring bell for your house. And guess what? Welcome to the new world. Now you subscribe yourself as well, if you don't secure it properly, of course, to this new movement of people watching people, which is the new trend.
Yeah.
Seeing people make fun of my old school TV, no one can watch me on that.
Yeah. And you must, and I would imagine with all these different, now we're kind of getting back to the chat rooms, right? With these new applications for these kids that are targeting the kids, meet these strangers and all that, which is, the chat rooms were popular back I don't even remember what year that was, but they were popular before all these new applications. But that's got to increase the level of anxiety because.
Yeah, I think, with anything, it's, people prey on, our innermost like struggles, right?
Mhm.
So if we're feeling neglected or not appreciated, all of a sudden a complete stranger is wanting to talk to us and hear about, what's going on in our lives and making us feel like we matter. And that's why I think so many people are calling these online people their best friends, because it feels like no one understands me better than this person. When really it's more of, if that's all you're spending your time doing, of course people are going to get to know you, but it's at what extent and what are they trying to gain that for? Is it to be your best friend? Is it to, make you feel like this illusion of trust and take advantage of that? It's not safe. Or any way that you look at it, it's setting us up for failure. And, again, with all the different things going on in a teen, change in hormones and all this stuff going on, all we need is to like add on these additional pressures and the anxiety and depression and feeling less than, and it's all preyed upon. So, being more mindful about that, it's crucial. I mean, chat rooms are always going to be popular, and the second they knock down one, 10 more are going to spring up in its place. And that's the same thing with apps. We thought that, MySpace was going to be the best thing ever for the rest of our lives. Everyone's like, what's MySpace? What is that? Then it was Facebook. Facebook, now it's Instagram. It's always going to be, I mean, think about it. You got your first iPhone. Now every year you have to upgrade to feel like it means something. I had an old iPhone for several years, and I finally upgraded to another phone, and you just feel like it's habitual, like I have to do it or I'm missing out on something. And then you find those issues with technology where I swear it's true, like the second they release a new iPhone, all of a sudden yours starts to glitch and you have to get the new one. It happens every single time to me.
That's
Right? So if you look at movies and pop culture, there's always this belief that we have technology learning from us and developing new ways to make us feel like, oh, you really get us, and everything we could ever want or need is being created because they're monitoring all of our needs, right? So it's becoming less like science fiction and it's becoming more of a reality, and it's learning how to be more mindful about that and finding that time to ground yourself and get back into the real day-to-day and not making technology, run us.
Right.
There was that belief at one point that if you've ever been to Universal Orlando, you would see the moving walkways like the Jetsons, right? And there was this belief that eventually we're going to be in sometime in 2020 or in that span that we'll have moving walkways everywhere. And it's thinking about ways that we can make the world more convenient. And there are some things that we just need to realize we need to do it the old-fashioned way. And with that, it's allowing technology to have a place in our life, but not running our lives.
Yeah, it's finding that balance.
Right.
And we do need that balance.
So yeah, and I want to make sure we cover this. There are benefits to social media. There are a lot of them. But again, if you don't have the wherewithal to handle everything, even 15 minutes could cause you an upset. So there are quite a few benefits. I utilize a lot of the mindfulness apps for myself, for family members. I recommend them to clients. You have to think about, if you tell kids, listen, I want you to practice this, that, and the other. They're like, no way, I'm not doing it. I'm like, hey, but if you download this app, you can practice it every single day. They'll do it. They'll download this app and they're like, hey, I'm meditating for 15 minutes a day because my phone tells me to. Great, you're doing it. Like, I have kids that refuse to journal. All of a sudden they download a journaling app on their phone and they're writing nonstop. So there are some benefits to that. You don't have access for whatever reason to work out outside, whether it's raining, there's a storm, or quarantine, whatever. We have the ability to utilize, all these different, YouTube has so many different workouts and things like that. We're going to be releasing our Zumba video soon.
Did.
Oh, you did?
I released it.
So now you can work out with us on Zumba at any time you want. So there are benefits to it. I mean, think about right now in quarantine, you have family members that are down the street that you couldn't see for quite some time. Now you have the ability to FaceTime them, and you have the ability to stay connected to your friends. You can plan surprise birthdays as you plan those parades. I got stuck in one the other day driving here. So there are amazing benefits. It's how often you're using it, what you're using it for. I mean, it's endless. If you can think of it, it exists. I mean, you could pick up a new hobby. You could learn how to cook something. You can pick up yoga. You can develop things. I mean, look at what technology is doing for health and for science. And, we just, NASA just sent, a rocket into space. Like, there are so many amazing things. With advancements, there's always going to be the other side of it, like Chris had mentioned too. So do we just prevent ourselves from the benefits and just remove it altogether, which will never happen, I'm just saying, or do we learn how to kind of have this ebb and flow with it, and learning how to regulate and utilize it in an appropriate manner? There are a lot of ways to self-regulate our moods, our emotions. There are just so many things out there that if we really put the energy into seeking those things, there are kids that hate reading, and all of a sudden you buy them a Kindle and they're going to read a whole book, But again, if they're sitting there reading a book for 4 hours on a Kindle, I would moderate that because, eye strain, headaches, and irritability, monitoring that. But like I said, I mean, just as I could have a whole hour spending with you all telling you about all the risks, I could spend another hour telling you about all the benefits. If you know how to monitor the risks, then you can reap the rewards and enjoy the benefits.
And each one of these platforms, there is definitely, as Hera mentioned, a lot of pluses. I mean, we love YouTube. There's so many things you could do about it.
Yeah.
Are you going to see some things that are inappropriate? Yes, but there are a lot of great things, and it's about being educated and really informing and being a family unit and talking with your kids, because they're going to learn it, whether they learn it in your house or whether they learn it outside of the house. So it's better that you teach them and have that open line of discussion, so that you know where their mind is at, at their level. But it doesn't mean you have to wait till a certain level. You start young and at that level. And again, there's good and bad, and it's just trying to monitor your kids in the sense that if you see that it affects them in a negative way, try to talk to them, right? We talked about,
right off the bat, having that conversation.
Exactly. And Hera has some great mindfulness techniques that help, walk you through that. And they're simple things. It's not something that you have to sit there and meditate and do all the, spend 20 minutes of just humming or whatever. There are a lot of really great techniques that Hera's mentioned in previous webinars. These are small, simple little tools that your kids can use when they become overwhelmed because they didn't get the 1,000 likes. Because that little...
Yeah, they have to delete their photo, they have to refilter it, they have to repost it, they have to change the caption. It's exhausting.
It is.
So
I was mad the other day I didn't get so many likes. So I get it.
She does get mad about that.
I get it, but you know what? It should be fun.
Right.
It really should be fun. And it's not to say that they didn't like you. It's just those people particularly liked you at that moment, or liked the picture. And that shouldn't define you. That shouldn't be, what makes you who you are. Everybody is wonderful in their own way. So it shouldn't be because they have so many, and half those people, they don't know anyway. So
true.
So it's just a healthy balance, understanding it, but, be aware, I'd say be aware of your kids and be not their friend. You're not their friend, you're their parent, but be their friend when they need a friend. So, but understanding that there's good and bad, and you can't completely exclude from everything, because when we start looking at these statistics and everything and what goes on in the real world, we know it could be very scary when we're looking at it and we're looking for it. It is scary, but is having the right tools, having the right information, and really just being aware that with good comes bad, or there wouldn't be good, right? It would all be
the same reason why we lock our doors. Is the same reason we need to look into cell phones and these applications and be aware of them.
Exactly. Yeah, so it's just a matter of being aware, and this is one of the reasons why here at TBH that we've been bringing these webinars and bringing the experts to the table. One, we've been having a blast doing them.
Yes.
You know, but it's amazing the amount of information that's out there, and we're trying to do our due diligence to make sure that we can provide you with that information.